Yang, and this is my demo video for the FSE chat room application. So first I will talk about the application's purpose and demo its basic feature requirements. So the application's purpose is basically to support user to do registration and then do login or logout to the chat room. And then after login and inside the chat room, the user can post the messages and all the chat history in the chat room will be persistently stored on the backend database. So when user logging back, they can still find out all the chat histories in the chat room. So let's now demo the basic functions. So here the server is already running up. And so now let's first register a user. Maybe call it Alice. And let's register Alice. And after registration, the user will be automatically logging. So let's try the login function now. Sorry, wrong password. Yeah, so we can see that Alice could be logging. And if we try to register Alice again, we will find that it will fail. Yeah, because the username have to be unique. Yeah, so now let's log in Alice here. And let's try to create another user called Bob. Yeah, and now Bob is logging, and let's post a message. And we can see Alice can receive this message. And Bob can also saw this message. And now if we log out Bob and try to log in again, we can see the messages are still there, and that's because the messages are all stored on the backend database. Yep. So the next step, I will talk about some major technologies used in this project. Yeah, so the one I would like to talk about is the authentication and session management part. Yeah, so on the authentication part, I'm using passport.js, and the session management is basically done through the Express session. And because I'm using passport.js, actually I don't need to really handle the Express session part because passport.js help to handle that part. And I'm using passport.js local strategy. So what is local strategy? It is basically to support that we can do authentication if user just given us a username and password combination, then we can do the authentication. And after successfully authenticated, a session will be created on the backend database, and a cookie will be planted on the browser client. So later on, all the requests will from the browser client will also sending the cookies there. So the backend will be aware that the user is authenticated. If a user click the log out, then the session will be removed from the backend database, and then this is officially log out the user from the front end. And another important part is the socket I/O. So this is to do the real-time communication. How it works is like the front end will broadcast the message, and the server side receive the message. So the front end first send the message to the backend side, and the backend receive the message and then broadcast the message to all the connected browser clients. And in the next part, we will talk about the code structure and references. So all the references is in the README file. So here is the sections of the references, and here is how to run a setup. Yeah, you have to have Node.js and Docker on your machines. And the file structure is, here is the migrations file, set up the initial database, and here is the static folders, contains the front-end CSS and front-end JavaScript, and here is the views file, basically contains the front-end template, HTML template, and here is the server folder, contains where to set up the Express application, where to set up the database instance, and where to set up the passport strategy, and here the bin folder contains this is the place where we create the actual HTTP server and set up the socket I/O. And I think that's pretty much of it. And thanks for your time.